Right, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Randy here, rtsball.com, bringing you a quick Eve Echoes video today. Happy hump day to you. Today we're going to talk about four fittings in Eve Echoes. 3 of them were just added in today's patch. Again, happy Wednesday. The patch dropped a few hours ago, and today's topic of discussion is going to be Warp Disruption. So we already know that the Warp Disruptors that have been in the game since launch, the actual namesake Warp Disruptors, are fantastic little items. They've cost us a ton of money. If you've found one, you've got really excited. Woo! But now let's talk about the 3 new types of Warp Disruption that were added into the game today and which one is best and why, okay? So the first thing, your regular Warp Disruptor has very low power grid requirements. It has low to medium warp jammer strength, depending on if it's a named or not. And it also has pretty decent range. So you could consider the Warp Disruptors to be low power requirements, low to medium disruption strength, jammer strength, and long range items, okay? So those are the items that are currently in the game today. And that have been in the game since launch. However, a slew of new items were added in today's patch, and we're going to talk about those right now. So the first thing we're going to talk about, I'm going to skip the Interdiction for a second. The first thing we're going to talk about is the Warp Scrambler. So you can see I showed you an interruptive Warp Disruptor. Now you're seeing an interruptive Warp Scrambler. So you can already see off the get-go here that the power grid requirements are ×6. So that's a ×6 on the power grid requirements. Now this is actually a really key feature, because if you're flying a rig, you're flying a frigate, and you're in that 50 megawatt range, 40 to 50 megawatt range for your overall power grid, you may need to put some power grid fittings in order to use one of these, okay? So I actually have some probes that are already outfitted with regular Warp Disruptors, and they are maxed out on the power grid. So in order for me to swap out this Warp Scrambler for my Warp Disruptor, I'm going to need to put on one of the power grid, maybe even 2 of the power grid rigs, and get ready to rumble that way. Okay, so high power grid. The next notable feature here is the extremely high warp jammer strength. So this is a ×2 multiple on the Warp Disruptor, okay? So the Warp Scrambler, 6 times power grid requirements, 2 times the warp jammer strength, and you can see here the final feature to talk about is, of course, the range, which is 50% of the Warp Disruptor range. So if you're going to use a Warp Scrambler, watch your frigate's power grid, but you'll have higher jammer strength, and you'll be able to use it only in shorter range, unfortunately. But it is a very strong item, and you'll probably see people starting to switch to this instead of the Disruptors, just due to the massively greater warp jammer strength, okay? Now let's talk about the 2 bubbles that were added into the game today. Bubble day! Bubble day! Yeah, I know, I need help. Alright, so let's take a look at the Bubblegum Interdictor Spear Launcher. The name says it all. Picture the Mean Girls movie, right? One of them girls just blowing a bubble, right? And then the bubble just, instead of popping, it just kind of floats in space. That's what this does. You launch a bubble into space. It costs you a decent amount of fuel, but nothing astronomically high. It's higher than like a medium, armor rep or something like that, or a bubble or whatever. But it's going to be less than like a large fitting. So decent fuel consumption, but it does cause a disruption field within a 17.5 kilometer range. So what this means is, as the bubble flies through space, anything that passes through that 17.5 kilometer range that is warping is going to get knocked out of warp, which is pretty cool. The one thing to note here is very low power grid requirements. However, this Interdiction unit is going to be unique to the Interdictor interdiction ship types, which I believe are all cruisers at this time. So if you're going to use the interdiction spear launcher, you're going to have to be one of the 10 cruisers or 12 cruisers, whatever, that they just added today. And you're going to have to carry some fuel on you, which will be like the plasmoids, and able to launch this. The other thing to talk about on this is it does massively multiply your inertia, okay? So something to note, if you're using this, you're not going to be moving very quickly. Okay. And the final disruption item added today, not the scrambler, I already looked at that. The final disruption item added today is going to be the Warp Disruption Field Generator. So this is similar to the bubble, except this one travels with the ship that's using it. So you could be a ship traveling at high speed, and you could be using this field generator to create, again, 18-kilometer radius or 18-kilometer wide disruption field around the ship that's moving, okay? So this has double the fuel cost, and that's actually a pretty substantial fuel cost. So you could probably run out of fuel in 10 or 15 minutes. So plan on maybe having some buddies near you that can jettison some plasmoids as you run low or whatever, okay? The other thing to notice is it does increase your signature radius quite significantly. So if you are a small ship using this, even if you just have it equipped, you can expect to get punched in the face by things that you otherwise would have dodged previously, okay? So that is it. We've got the Warp Disruptor that we've seen forever. Pros and cons of that, right? Warp Disruptor, long range, low power grid, low jammer strength. You got the Warp Scrambler, okay? Short range, high power grid requirements, high jammer strength. You've got the Interdiction bubbles, which create moving bubbles that knock people out of warp. They massively reduce your inertia, massively multiply your inertia, and they cost medium fuel. And then you've got the medium range bubbles from the Warp Disruption Field Generator, and they again break warp within your bubble, and they move with the ship using it and increase the signature radius by 50%. So that's it for this video. Stay tuned. There'll be about 10 more videos this week covering all the different things in the patch, all the stuff that you thought you didn't need to know. I will tell you here. Thanks for watching. Give me that like and sub. Love you guys a long time. Randy, out.